Hello and welcome to another Preach workshop from the Leaders of Worship and Preachers Trust and Preach Magazine. My name is Tanya Stead. I'm the editor here at Preach Magazine and content manager for LWPT. It is my prayer that this workshop will encourage and equip you as you start thinking ahead to the Christmas season, to the Advent planning for the greatest story. Tanya Marlow would like us to feel equipped enough to help and support those that might be grieving through this Christmas time, whether it's fresh grief or one that lingers. I pray that this workshop would encourage you, and I do hope that you will listen in and apply some of the ideas that Tanya shares. This video is not going anywhere. It's going to stay on our YouTube channel. So don't just watch today and forget about it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and save this video on a browser so that when you or others come to plan, you're able to refer back to this workshop. You're able to share it with those that might be preaching in your settings. And I pray that we will all feel the joy that Jesus brings, the comfort that Jesus brings, the love, mercy, and the glory of his birth at Christmas. So add your comments, what you thought about the workshop in the video. It really does help us reach more of those that need this advice. So I want to thank Tanya Marlow for coming on and sharing in this workshop how to preach Christmas to those who dread it.
Hi, I'm Tanya Marlow, and I'm the author of Treasures in Straw, Exploring the Griefs and Gifts of the Christmas Story. In this workshop today, we're going to be looking at why people find Christmas difficult, how our preaching can inadvertently make it worse, and then I'll share with you 5 top tips for preaching Christmas sermons that make space for both celebration and lament. A man once told me that Christmas was so associated with grief for him that every year he took the whole of December off and literally flew to the other side of the world to volunteer. He literally left the country just to avoid Christmas. And my friend Helen Austin is a committed Christian, yet she told me that for many years she avoided all things Christmas, including church, for the whole month of December, because it was just too painful. So why is it that people find Christmas so difficult? The answer is usually what Kenneth Doker calls disenfranchised grief. The rules of Christmastide are that it is a perfect, magical, cozy day full of feasting, family, and presents. And from approximately September each year, the adverts start and we gear up for this day with all kinds of rituals: buying the Christmas tree, decorating it, sending Christmas cards, opening advent calendars, asking random children what they want Santa to bring them, and spending a lot of money on presents and rich food. And these traditions operate as a sort of reinforcement of emotion, much like when Pavlov famously trained his dog to expect food by ringing a bell before the food came. Starbucks transitions from pumpkin lattes to cinnamon spice, and just like that, the bell has rung and we're drooling. And what this means is that if we have always experienced happy Christmases, then we associate all these traditions with happiness, and our joy increases. So Christmastide and everything associated with it acts as a megaphone. Unfortunately, this megaphone can be equally loud if you associate Christmas with trauma, grief, or loneliness. There are all kinds of griefs at Christmas: mourning loved ones who are no longer with us, the grief of infertility during a festival all about childbirth, the grief of poverty when so many are celebrating plenty, the grief of war when pastors are preaching peace, the grief of loneliness when everyone else is surrounded by family. And what makes this grief particularly painful is that it is disenfranchised grief. Society has its own emotion rules of when it's polite to be sad. So we're not allowed to show our grief when everyone else is partying. Dickens has even left us with an insult to describe people who find it hard to celebrate Christmas: a Scrooge. Silenced grief is hard enough, but once you add in yearly rituals that show everyone else full of Yuletide joy, and suddenly Christmas becomes a very isolating time indeed. So, what's the church's part in this? What I've observed is that church leaders seem as keen as anyone else to amp up the joy and the magic of Christmastide, but we just add Jesus to it. In our family services, it is the most obvious. We ask children what they hope to get from Santa and say how presents at Christmas are wonderful, but Jesus is the best gift of all. We say that Mary had to give birth early, but Jesus got a cozy manger bed and we coo over the baby. We tell them to make room for Jesus because there wasn't room for him in the inn. And in some ways, it feels like we fall into the trap of saying that Jesus is a kind of Santa plus, because Santa brings an Xbox, but Jesus brings joy and eternal life. Regrettably, I suspect that most kids, if they're honest, think that the Xbox is the better deal. So what is the effect of all of this on people struggling with life? It means that the world is telling them that Christmas is a time of magic and joy during which you must be happy. And then the church doubles down on this, that we must be extra joyful because Jesus. And this means that grieving adults can feel very excluded from church. Is there another way? One approach that a lot of churches do is to provide a blue Christmas service that specifically makes space for lament in the Christmas season. And that's a really valuable ministry. However, this still effectively ghettoises anyone in pain and gives the message that our main services are only for joy feelers. And the reason I wrote Treasures in Straw is because I saw so little space for lament or grief in our Christmastide, yet so much of it in the original Christmas story. There is gift, yes, but there is also loss. Take Joseph. He became the stepfather of Jesus, but by losing the right to divorce Mary, which would have defended his honour and standing in society. He lost the right to name the child. Then when Herod grew murderous, he had to flee for his life overnight and became a political refugee. And I think from a deeper reading of the text, it seems likely that he forever lost his sense of safety after this event. So if we look at the Christmas story and unwrap it from the tinsel and saccharine sweet retellings, we see all of life there. Tyranny and protection, songs and silence, babies that come too early or too late, disgrace and honour, darkness and light, relief and anger, loss and gain, grief and gift, all wrapped up together. Sometimes the Bible is more honest than we are. When I look at that story, and not our Christmastide watered down version, I see a place for everyone, no matter what we're going through. I also see a better story to tell evangelistically. The doctrine of the incarnation is such good news. God, who created the universe, who's lofty and holy and far above us, also knows intimately what it means to be human, what it means to be hungry, tired, poor, limited, misunderstood, stressed, and surrounded by people who need something from us all the time. It is good news to have a God who comes into the world to bring peace and joy. But for me, it's just as good news that God knows what it's like to actually experience a world of oppression and sadness with empathy and compassion. The God who empathizes with us is a far better story than Santa Plus. So with that in mind, here are my 5 top tips for preaching at Christmas in a way that includes those rejoicing and those weeping. So number 1, Choose sermon series that reflect the both and of the Christmas season. I wrote Treasures in Straw wanting it to be a great personal devotional book, but I'd also love it to be a resource for the whole church, including leaders. As someone married to a clergy person, I know all too well the pressure of coming to yet another Christmas looking for a fresh angle. So my book offers 5 different themes within the overall theme of grief and gift, which could act as a sermon series, along with written prayers, creative prayer exercises, and an appendix of small group sessions your church can run. So my 5 mini series are: number 1, Kingdom Reversals. These look at Old Testament prophecies and spend time dwelling in them. Isaiah 9 specifically addresses people who are currently in pain, who feel forgotten, abandoned, isolated. The people walking in darkness receive light. The people who are battle weary receive peace. The hard pressed are given relief. These are messages specifically for people whose life is hard. Often all it takes to preach pastorally is to spend time acknowledging the pain before we present the solution. Plus, recognizing that we won't be completely pain-free till heaven. So we can preach Isaiah 9 by saying, these people of the past, they walked in darkness, but then Jesus came and now we walk in the light. And that is true in its own way. But it is also denying the experience of Christians who have the light of Christ, yet feel in a very dark place. We can work with the metaphor while still being faithful to the Bible and remember the now and the not yet of all Christ's promises. In my first devotion in Treasures in Straw, I phrase it like this: if you feel surrounded by darkness right now, remember our future, an eternity where there will be no more night. Revelation 21:25. Meanwhile, in our current dark places, Jesus is our light and his presence is our hope, however dim it may seem sometimes. Just by changing little phrases to add nuance like that, it can make all the difference to people who are hurting, and it doesn't take away from the joy that other people are experiencing. Indeed, if I may extend the metaphor, the light of our unshakable blessings shines all the more brightly against a darker backdrop. There are also 4 other series to explore. Number 2, Honour and Favour. How looking at the Nativity through the eyes of an honour-shame-based culture helps us to understand the peril as well as the blessings of the Bible characters, and how the incarnation actually brings an end to shame. Number 3, Songs After Silence. We often cover the songs of Mary and Zechariah in our preaching, but how long do we spend thinking about the silences before them or surrounding them? What happens in those silences? And how does God transform us? So many of us feel silenced, so knowing that silence is often the precursor to a song of praise is very good news. Another series, number 4, Giving Up. We always focus on giving at Christmas, but in the original story, there was just as much about giving up. And this can mean both giving up to sacrifice for others, but also surrendering something to God. And again, these feelings of sacrifice and surrender are such common experiences for many people at Christmas time. And we can see ourselves in our experience in that original Christmas story and be met where we are. And finally, I have a series that specifically addresses grief for those who are bereaved, Pierced Hearts. And sometimes all it takes to include grieving people in Christmastide is to spend time seeing the griefs of the Nativity alongside its joys. So I present to you these 5 series that can be useful as ways into the Christmas story that includes, rather than isolating, people who are struggling. So that was my first top tip: choose sermon series that are inclusive. Second top tip: avoid the we. Small changes to our language can make a big difference. In order to make people feel part of a shared experience, we often throw out the we questions in our leading services or preaching of them. Who else is excited about Christmas? Are we looking forward to our presents? This creates a group that's in with us, excited about Christmas. But if we change our language from we to some of us, then it gives us permission not to fit in with the core. For example, some of us are probably feeling really excited about Christmas. Who's feeling excited? Others of us may find Christmas really hard. I bet there are a few here today who really struggle with it, even though they may not let on. But however we feel about Christmas, the good news for us is just acknowledging that not everyone has the same experience in life can help people feel they belong. Third, remember that neither Christmas nor childhood is necessarily magical. We may feel pressure to emphasize the magic and joy of Christmas for the sake of the children. And indeed, we all know that vicars who give away the secret of Santa get absolutely slaughtered in the press. So this is understandable. But just as adults' experience with Christmas is hugely varied, so are children's experiences. In your average school assembly, you will have children who fear Christmas because of the violence that accompanies their parents' festive drinking. There will be children who go hungry at Christmas, who shiver all winter, or know that Santa only visits the rich kids. There may be children living in temporary accommodation who have to feign thankfulness for a doll that's far too young for them, because they know their one Christmas gift has come from a church and has the faint whiff of charity. If I am that child, I may be grateful to hear Mary singing about the hungry being given good things and the rich sent empty away. I might feel glad to know that God chose to be born among people on low incomes. I might be glad to know that God wants to bring an end to violence, because that's what peace means. So, top tip number 4. For fresh grief, lean into metaphor and ritual. For older griefs, tell stories. When someone is in the raw space of profound grief, often there is this protective numbness that words and preaching can't break through. And so rituals can be helpful in processing loss, and services that include those elements, like lighting candles in a dark church, can be very powerful. The prophets give us other metaphors, yokes around our necks that can be broken, weapons that are turned into farming tools, both Isaiah 9, and a dawn rising, which is Zechariah's song. It would be a very cold service, but I half wonder if a sunrise service at Christmas is just as appropriate as a sunrise service at Easter, however dim that light may come. For older griefs, tell stories. Some people have small groups at Christmas which are designed for those who struggle, because that makes you feel less alone, which I think is a really good idea. And it's also the reason that my book, Treasures in Straw, is packed with examples of people who had awful Christmases but managed to reclaim the season. We help one another on by sharing our experiences. So we've had 4 top tips. Top tip number 5, remember that you are your own audience. On a clergy spouse forum, I once saw a poll about whose partner was the first to fall asleep on Christmas Day. And when my husband, John, was a parish priest, he had to do all the Christmas cooking as well because I'm disabled. So it was a dead cert that by 4 p.m. he couldn't keep his eyes open. For clergy, Christmas is usually a hugely demanding time of the year, and it can feel lonely and exhausting. So it can help to ask yourself, what do I need to grieve? What do I need to be grateful for? What element of God with us, Jesus fully understanding me and all my limitations and inadequacies, do I need to hear this year? If you preach a sermon that truly ministers to you, you may find it helps others too. So just to recap, those 5 top tips. Number 1, choose inclusive sermon series. Number 2, avoid the we. Number 3, remember that neither Christmas nor childhood are magical. Number 4, for fresh grief, lean into metaphor and ritual. For older griefs, tell stories with one another. And number 5, you are your own audience. This year, I invite you to preach both grief and gift together at Christmas, just as that's reflected in life and the original Christmas story. And please do check out my book, Treasures in Straw, a resource for the whole church. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for staying till the end. It is an absolute pleasure to put on these workshops for you, to create Preach Magazine, and for all the other content that you can find on our website. So if you haven't had a look at our website yet, please go and visit www.lwpt.org.uk. And if you'd like to support what we do at the Leaders of Worship and Preachers Trust, to continue to put on these workshops, to plan ahead for webinars, and for all the other content that is freely and readily available to read, and for all the Preach Magazine content, please consider giving us your donation to help in this cause. We're here to see the future generations of UK ministers, preachers, leaders, and those who share the word equipped and encouraged through financial grants and resources, and with us coming alongside them throughout the journey from the beginning. So it's been an absolute pleasure to host you here today, and I really do hope to see you at the next one. God bless.